So I think there's a common misconception out there about employment agencies and how they're not held to the same law-abiding standards as other companies because there serves as a connection between the candidate and a different company. Well, I'm here to tell you that that cannot be further from the truth. Employment agencies are held to the same standard as other companies, if not even a higher standard, because of the fact that they're interacting with candidates and different organizations. In this video, I'm going to discuss some common laws that are associated with employment agencies, as well as some helpful tips for you to think about these laws in terms of you starting your own agency, because honestly, no one else is really talking about it. So if you want to learn more, then stay tuned. Hi everyone, I'm Natasha, the business recruiter, and if you're new to my channel, I talk about all things recruiting, from landing your dream job to starting your own agency. And in today's video, I'm going to focus on the laws or the legal side of starting a recruiting agency and some things that you really need to take into consideration as you get started. Now, huge disclaimer here. I am not providing any legal advice whatsoever in this video. I do not have a legal background. I am not a lawyer in any way, shape, or form. So I do want to make sure that we start this video off on the same page and that is clearly understood. Okay, so now that we've gotten that out the way, I want to go through some brief history in regards to the law so that it builds up to kind of where we are today. So there are a number of federal laws that most organizations are required to adhere by. And I say most because the number of employees does impact this to an extent. Now, in 1963, Congress passed the Equal Pay Act, in which the Department of Labor was responsible for enforcing. Now, the Department of Labor, of course, at this time had a lot that was on their plate. So in 1964, President Lyndon B. Johnson decided to enact the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And with this act was the establishment of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, or the EEOC. Now, the sole purpose of the EEOC is to enforce Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, as well as ensure that there are no unlawful employment practices happening within organizations. Now, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was pivotal for America, and according to the EEOC's website, Title VII states the following: "This law makes it illegal to discriminate against someone on the basis of race, color, religion, national origin, or sex." Up until 1964, there were no other laws in place that really addressed any of these premises in terms of discriminations. Now, it is important to note that Title VII was amended by the Pregnancy Discrimination Act in 1978. And according to the EEOC's website, essentially what that states is, it makes it illegal to discriminate against a woman because of pregnancy, childbirth, or a medical condition related to pregnancy or childbirth. And it also states that it's illegal to retaliate against a person because the person complained about the discrimination that would be associated with any of those elements of pregnancy listed above. Now, as mentioned before, we also have to make sure that we circle back on the Equal Pay Act, which essentially stated that men and women who were completing the same work in the same workplace had to be paid equally. And then we also have the Age Discrimination Act, which stated that anyone above the age of 40 could not be discriminated against within the workplace. And it's also important to note that Title I of the American with Disabilities Act of 1990 makes it illegal to discriminate against a qualified person with a disability in the private sector and in state and local governments. Now, that list is not at all exhaustive of all of the federal laws that are associated with employment practices. It is important that I also mention to take into consideration Sections 102 and 103 of the Civil Rights Act of 1991 and Sections 501 and 505 of the Rehabilitation Act. Now, I know at this point your head's probably spinning and you're like, Natasha, these are a lot of laws, so why are they important? Well, in 1973, Congress told the EEOC that they had the authority to sue private companies in regards to violations to all of these laws. And you guessed it, employment agencies are included in that as well. And you're probably wondering, has the EEOC even gone through with suing any employment agencies? Well, the truth is they have. And if you do a quick Google search, I was able to find several recent cases of this. And believe me, there's a lot more that's out there. Now, I want to be very clear that this video is not meant to scare you away from starting your own employment agency. More than anything else, it's to be informative and make sure that you're aware that as you go through and you think about all of the steps involved of getting off the ground with your employment agency, that you think about the legal piece of it as well. And the EEOC's website is a great source of truth in terms of information about how they view employment agencies. In fact, if we go to the EEOC's website, they do list general coverage in terms of how they actually go about viewing employment agencies. So it states that an employment agency, such as a temporary staffing agency or a recruitment company, is covered by the laws we enforce if the agency regularly refers employees to employers. This is true even if the employment agency doesn't receive payment for the service, and the agency is covered no matter how many employees it has. Now, that's an extremely important note because most employment agencies, as you're getting started, is going to be either you or maybe a business partner. So whether it's yourself or other individuals, it doesn't matter. All of those laws that were discussed in this video, you're going to have to adhere to in terms of your employment agency. Now, before we close this video, there is one important thing to note in terms of laws. It's not just the federal ones that you have to keep into consideration. You also have to take into account the fact that there's going to be state and local laws that are associated with employment agencies as well. Taking a quick look at Washington State, which is where I live, there's an Employment Agency Act that I have to take into consideration as I begin to get my business off of the ground. Okay, so in terms of what my helpful tip is, my helpful tip, now that you have all of the information in terms of some of the general laws to take into consideration, is to do your own research. It's important that you have at least a surface level understanding of all of these laws. After you've done your research, then take the time to seek out counsel from an expert, meaning a lawyer. As mentioned in this video, I have no legal background, so I am not giving you any legal advice. Make sure that you take the time to find a quality expert who's going to be able to walk you through each of the individual cases or information that are associated with these laws. And lastly, I want you to remember that this is not a barrier to success. It's simply one step in the process of you getting your business off of the ground. And it's important that you take these steps now, that way you're set up for success from the very beginning. So that is it for this video. I hope that you enjoyed the content. If you did, make sure to give me a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed to my channel, make sure that you do that as well. In terms of questions, I'm always taking questions in my Facebook group, so I'll link that down below in the description box. Feel free to join and then send me a DM, and I'm happy to chat about it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on my next video.